Hi, Mike Cannell here with Orcas Island Leather Goods, and today I'm going to show you how to assemble our Madrona Mini Tote. You'll want to make sure you've watched both our how to hand stitch video and how to cross stitch video before beginning this project. Included in your kit will be your main tote leather, 2 handles, an outside pocket, a key loop with snap, 2 needles, thread, and an edge finishing kit. First, we will attach the key loop to the main tote leather. Align the key loop to the 4 holes on the inside of your bag, making sure that when the loop is snapped closed, the good side of the leather is facing out and the snap closes properly. Using about 13 inches of thread, we'll saddle stitch around these 4 holes, back stitch 2.5 stitches, and melt the thread ends. You'll notice we finished the key loop stitch on the outside of the bag, as this stitch will be covered when the strap is added. Next, we will attach the handles to the main tote leather. With the good side of your tote leather facing up, your handles will attach on each end with the good side of the handle leather facing up as well, like this. Using the regular saddle stitch explained in the how to hand stitch video, begin at one end of the U-shaped stitch line and go around to the other end. We'll use about 28 inches of thread. Make sure to even out your needles and go in with your first needle from the top or good side of the leather and continue until you get to the end. Then backstitch a full 2.5 stitches. You'll want to make sure to melt your ends on the inside of the handle for a clean look. Repeat this for all 4 handle connection points, and then you'll end up with the bag looking like this. Next, we'll attach the outside pocket to the tote. You can add some character to this leather by folding and scrunching it up until you are happy with its appearance. Just as with the handles, begin on one end of the stitch line and stitch forward. Using your saddle stitch, go to the last hole, then back stitch 2.5 stitches and melt your thread ends on the inside of the tote. With the handles and pockets finished, it's time to stitch up the tote itself. We're going to start with the bag inside out temporarily. Fold the main leather piece in half with the good sides of the leather to the inside, which also means the handles and pocket are on the inside of your folded piece. We're going to stitch the short stitch line on the bottom of the tote, which right now looks like a rectangle. Fold the corners of the tote sides together so they line up with the longer stitch line holes. Start on the second hole in, and then stitch back into the first hole. Now we'll loop our stitch around the edge and back into the first hole. Pull it tight to ensure this corner stays together after we turn the bag the right way out. After looping around the 2 pieces of leather, stitch forward past the seam in the middle and continue until you get to the other end. Again, loop your stitch around the ends of the leather and back into that last stitch hole and continue for a full 2.5 back stitches. Repeat this on the other side to complete the bottom of your bag. Now we can turn the bag right side out. Push the corners inward and turn the bag so the good side of the leather is on the outside. The last thing to do is stitch up the 2 outside seams with a cross stitch. So if you haven't watched the how to cross stitch video, you may want to peek at that one right now. Take a long piece of thread here. You'll need much more thread to cross stitch than when we saddle stitch. I'd use around 7 to 8 times the length of the stitch line to be safe. From the outside of the tote, pass one needle through each of the bottom holes. So now both needles are on the inside. Cross them and go back out the same holes. So you simply created a loop, and now both needles are on the outside of the bag. Even out your thread links, and take one needle and pass it through the next hole on the opposite side where it came out. Then take the other needle and pass it through the hole on the opposite side, forming an X on the outside of your bag. The needles then come back to the front side by again passing through the hole directly across from where the other side of your thread had just come through, making a horizontal stitch. So on the front you'll have an X, and on the inside you'll have these horizontal loop stitches. As we head into your next X stitch on the outside, you want to have your first needle used for each stitch be from the same side, so the thread on top always comes from the same direction for a more uniform look. This is a long stitch line and will take some time. Check frequently that your X pattern is nice and uniform, and remember to keep those threads nice and tight. Stitch all the way to the top, and once you complete your final X into the last stitching holes, cross your needles and go back outside the bag, then cross again and bring the needles back to the inside. And then cross a final third time so your needles are back on the outside. Then backstitch, following your same cross stitch pattern for 2 full back stitches. Lastly, we will finish the stitch by taking your needle and piercing it through the thread of the horizontal loop stitch on the inside, then cutting and melting the ends. Repeat the same process with the other vertical stitch line on the other side of your bag. Here's the completed bag, ready to gift or be put into use and shown off. This is an awesome time to take some photos of it. We'd love to see what you've made. If you have any questions, we're here to help, so don't hesitate to reach out. Our Facebook support page is a great place to find community and quick answers. Thank you so much for watching, and from our family to yours, happy making.